Welcome to the Lair of Secrets podcast, a podcast exploring the sprawling caverns of gaming, hidden treasures of geekdom, and the unexpected intersections of reality. I'm Ken Nyquist, and I've been up since 4 a.m. because my brain wanted to think about stuff. And so if I doze off in the middle of the podcast, that's why. Just nudge me. I'll try and wake up.
I've been there. I am David Moore, and I have been delving into the Lair's retro gaming vaults this last week. There's a story about that. It was an unexpected delve. Let's say, okay, I call it a delve. Really, I fell through the floor into a deeper layer, deeper section of the layer, and managed to wind up in the retro gaming area. Let me tell you the story. This last weekend, I went to St. Louis with Aaron because we had our holiday work party. And since I work remotely and they are based in St. Louis, that's where we went. And it was a really nice visit. We arrived on Friday, worked a little bit. The party wasn't until Saturday evening. So we went to the St. Louis Science Center, which we've been wanting to go to a couple of different times in past visits. And it's a really beautiful set of buildings, in my opinion. There is the main science center. It looks like it's been growing over the years, sort of thing. There's the main science center. There is a walkway that goes across the expressway, like the 6-8 lanes of expressway. And they have little cutout windows of different shapes, so you can look down the 40 feet to speeding cars below. I did not want to get anywhere near those windows, but there were kids that were jumping on top of those windows. And I'm like, okay, you are fearless and also a candidate for the Darwin Awards. Luckily, there were no accidents. But on the other side of the expressway is the planetarium that's part of it. As you walk through that area, they have a long hallway that gets to the planetarium. And so what they did was they ended up making an exhibit in this wide hallway, and it's called the Vault. And so it was the thing that stuck most in my mind because it had collections of seashells, collections of figurines. It had old lanterns, like railroad lanterns and ship lanterns and other stuff like that. But basically stuff that would fit in a small collector's case. And they had 6-8 of these different things, and they had where they were located, where the different artifacts came from, and what they were made of, etc. And it was just a really neat exhibit. And they had styled the entire hallway. They kind of put in fake bulkheads with fake Get Smart type doors that were just always open, or vault doors that had the glass in there. So it looked, it was definitely not a real vault door. I think it was made from laser cut plywood, but it was looked like all the gears and everything like that were in there. So it had the same aesthetic. In fact, above you, where some of the lights were, they put in a fake fan that rotated slowly so it would eclipse the light every so often, like you'd see in a movie. It was a fun place to go. There was more than we could do. There was a simulator area. There was a VR area that we didn't do. The Omnimax was amazing. We saw a film on, what is the super collider that did the Higgs boson? I just saw this movie. I should remember this name. And it's not
Sorry,
CERN.
I don't know that one off the top of my head.
It's in Switzerland, but it's actually 3 colliders or 3 loops. They have a small loop that starts accelerating the particles, and then they shunt the particles into a larger loop. And then when they are approaching the speed of light, they shove it into the biggest loop, and then they smash. It's this huge futuristic dwarven underground thing that is smashing atoms, individual nuclei of lead is what they're up to. But individual nuclei of atoms, so that they can break apart the nuclei and see the quarks inside. And it's just so interesting that you have this massive facility to smash the very smallest of objects. And so that was a great movie. They have an animatronic T-Rex, and when it was built, they learned more things about the anatomy of a T-Rex. And so they have a plaque there that says, hey, we have more info. The animatronic T-Rex has its claws facing down, but they figured out, oh no, it's probably facing sideways so it can grasp prey and other things like that. And the skin is a little bit different than it actually would have been, et cetera. So they have a plaque describing what it would look like if they built it today. And then there's a whole bunch in the main building. There's a whole bunch of really neat things there's hands-on exhibits, basically. There's like a makerspace, a bunch of other things. In fact, the guy who was monitoring the makerspace, they have a little area that's more for if you're part of the makerspace and like a subscriber to the museum. I think you get access to the better tools. Oh, okay. But and so he was kind of in that area to monitor the rest of the makerspace area. And he was actually making his own Game Boy, a handheld Game Boy made out of like a Raspberry Pi and 3D printing and custom joysticks, etc. Nice. So he was currently redesigning the shell of it when we were there, and he had it like open with all the guts out and everything. So it was nice. It was a really neat and fun experience. In case you can't tell, I like going to museums. And so does Aaron.
Very nice.
Our biggest complaint when we went to New York last year was that we went to like the Edge and one other place that was super high up to see the vistas, but they didn't give us which we were like, we could just have one of these. It's okay. We would like to have more time at the Natural History Museum. Thank you.
Yes.
So, but there was one exhibit that was really interesting. It was the games exhibit. And like at one point they're also, they have like a chess set, but it's vertical on the wall that you can actually play. They had ping pong, but they were like, what would happen to ping pong or what table tennis if you changed the play surface? And so what they had actually done is it wasn't a ping pong table and paddles. It was, you had paddles, but they had a tube that was horizontal. And instead of the net being just flat on the ground, it went inside on the entire circumference on the inside. And then it's like you could bounce the ping pong ball off of any surface on the inside of that tube, that cylinder. And so like you have one game, but you can create a completely different game if you change the terrain, basically.
Wow.
But the first thing that we saw when we went in there that Aaron ran over to go see was they had a bunch of different game consoles, one of which was the Atari 2600 playing Pitfall. She's like, oh, I haven't played this in forever. Immediately ran over and grabbed the controller, which leads me. I know I've been talking a while, and I apologize, but I also don't apologize.
It's totally okay.
Thank you, Group Proof, for the Hadron Collider. I should have known this. I did know this.
No. He clarified boom, boom circle.
The boom, boom circle. Okay.
The boom, boom circle. That's the technical name.
Yep. Speaking of Pitfall, when we finally later that night went to the holiday party, one of the things that they did was they gave everybody a gift, and we all got the Atari VCS console, the Onyx bundle. It is basically, instead of you putting together a MAME cabinet on your own, it has pre-installed a whole bunch of old Atari 2600 and Atari video game cabinets and a bunch of other things in there. So like Centipede, Millipede, a whole bunch of others. And then on the Atari 2600, of course, they have Combat, which is like Tank Combat, Sub Commander, which I had seen but never really played. I didn't own it. I didn't own a ton of on brand Atari games. I could finally play Adventure if I really wanted to. It was always my friends who had that game, but not me.
Go kill some ducks.
The thing that I find the coolest about it is this. It is a Bluetooth controller that is styled in the old Atari joystick manner. Bad ergonomics and all. So like it's
I can't tell you how many broke. I can't tell you how many of those I broke.
I never broke mine, which is I broke the paddle, but because the paddle had like a limit. But if you torqued it too much, there's a little plastic thing that was the limit would break off on the inside. And even if you glued it, it wouldn't hold. But yeah, it's got a button to start it up and like pair it. But it's got the standard red that is select. It's a normal joystick. You can twist the joystick if there's some things that need it, but there's no games that do that. And then it's got this little shoulder button, which was not on the original, but that's kind of your back button for navigation.
You should be able to use that for Breakout then.
Oh yeah, Breakout's on there.
I would have used a paddle like Night Driver and all of the paddle based games.
Yes. Breakout is on there. The other thing it has is an Xbox PS4 style controller with the two wings and two thumbsticks. Or actually, this has a thumbstick, a D-pad, and like a giant red button, and then A, B, Y, X, and some shoulder buttons. So it comes with two different controllers. So I, of course, started it. It took forever to update, but it did update, and finally I was able to play. The other thing that it can do, though, is you can actually install other operating systems on it, like they allow you to. So it's basically a little computer. They give you instructions on how to install Windows 10 or 11 on it. I'm sure you can install Linux on it. But one of the guys posted today on our work chat. It's like, hey, I'm installing the virus. And he shows a picture of his Atari with Windows 10 running and Steam being installed. which is an in joke for our founder. He always thinks that Steam is a virus because evidently it's not kind on the Office network in terms of like even if you're not doing anything, like it will reach out and do stuff on your network. And so he jokes about it, but he definitely does not like Steam on any sort of computer. So yeah, so I look forward to playing a little bit more. I want to try and find a game or two that we might that Tegan and I might have fun with, at least for a few minutes, and play around with. And then there's of course a store where you can buy more stuff, but it comes with a ton of games out of the box. So, and of course, because Aaron is an employee, we ended up with 2.
Oh,
I don't know what we're going to do with the other one. Probably going to the nephews or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
So, or the daughters, but I don't know if we already have the one here. So,
and it's hard to lure kids into playing like these ancient games. I've made my son play a couple of them when I was doing my heavy into my Ready Player One replay because we got into some 2-player Atari games. So like, dude, we're going to play Combat. It's like, what?
It's one of those things that I think I can lure her into it for short sessions, and it may go to the nephews because they're young enough that their screen time is still very limited. And my sister really wants to be able to monitor them. And as a single mom, she doesn't want to hand them like a tablet and then let them go willy nilly. They have tablets, but they're only used in certain areas and they only have certain apps on them. And so they might find it fun to have a selection of old games. And of course, my sister used to play the Atari 2600, so she might like it.
Yeah, so I actually got the Atari Flashbacks Classics for the Switch.
I think that is exactly the same set that I have.
It's very close, I think. Because I was looking at the 2 of them. I'm like, well, this is going to be a lot cheaper. The downside, though, is there are certain games like if it required a game paddle, look, you're just not going to be able to play it on the Switch. The controllers are not kind. Breakout's really just hard to anything that makes you moving back and forth when you're trying to use the touchpad or the sticks is just not. it's just not conducive to doing that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what is conducive to playing a game that is great for the Switch is Portal, because I got the Portal Companion Edition for the Switch, which came out a couple months ago, and it is fantastic. Portal 1 and Portal 2.
Oh, and 2. Oh, okay. Cool.
It's a bundle. It's got extra maps. It's got challenges. It's got achievements. It's basically like, I'm trying to remember. I was looking at the orange box. I don't think I have it behind me anymore, which is the original, orange box for
pre-Steam or the beginning of Steam. Orange box had Portal and Half-Life.
Thank you, Half-Life. I was completely spacing on Half-Life.
Might have been Half-Life 2. Might have been Half-Life 2.
I think it might have been Half-Life 2. But in any case, it's fantastic. I haven't actually thrown it up on my television yet, but just being able to play a fun puzzler on your Switch really easily is just nice. Like, you're hanging out on your sofa, and Portal's the kind of game like you fire it up, you complete a quick little level, you move on to the next one, and then you put it back down again, right? So the dark humor is just, it's still great. It's even funnier knowing how the game ends.
Yep.
So
I would not have bought the Atari VCS on my own, but it was given to me. So I'm going to try and take advantage of that. But Portal sounds cool. I probably won't install Steam on this because I have a Steam Deck, and I'll just play. I will play Portal on the Steam Deck. So if you want a partner for Portal 2, just let me know, and we can both have fun trying to coordinate our actions over the internet on handheld devices instead of with mouse and keyboard. That would be pretty hilarious.
Yeah, so I wholeheartedly recommend it. It's been great. A lot of people have said it's been fantastic, and they were right.
Cool.
It's just fun to fire up and play, and hearing Gladys doing her thing, and just it made me smile when I fired it up for the first time this weekend.
There are so many things that have come out since then that either have GLaDOS or Cave Johnson that are just amazing. In fact, the Steam Deck has a starter app that it comes with called Desk Job that helps you get used to the controller, but you're basically like this quality control engineer for toilets in the first one. And of course, and Guru Proof, Chris Miller is reminding us that she's also in Cyberpunk 2077 in certain spots.
I have not gotten that far yet. So
yeah, it's not like you may play through the entire time and not ever hear it, but she is there. The Desk Job, there's another character very similar to Wheatley who ends up weaponizing one of the toilets, and you end up going to jail because of all the damage that you cause. And you end up meeting Cave Johnson, or rather Cave Johnson's artificially intelligent head. Yeah, it gets crazy and it's fun. I think it is available, I'm pretty sure, for non-Steam Decks, but it just comes standard with the Steam Deck. So cool. If you buy a Steam Deck, they add it to your library. But if you don't have a Steam Deck, I'm pretty sure you can still play it. And I heartily recommend playing it if you like the Portal series. So it's got more of the same humor. Delving into another area of the lair with my super smooth segue. We have a lot of segues hanging around. They're always charging, but
that's right. You just pull one off the shelf and plug it in. Sometimes you have to fumble a bit to find one, but they're always there.
I mean, there really will be a revolution in how humans travel. I don't know if you remember that was actually one of the things that the CEO of Segway said.
Yeah. Those segues. Yeah, just traveling around.
I
thought you meant more plug and play segues.
Oh no. I was
running with the metaphor.
And I was doing a little play on words there. Badly, evidently. I can't juggle either.
Again, sleep deprived.
Continuing on that same Saturday, I had an eventful Saturday. At the office party, I was reminded that we had hired somebody, and he had introduced himself, or was introduced as the D&D guy on our chat when he was hired. And I was a little miffed at that. It's like, no, I'm the D&D guy. Erin's the D&D girl. But it turns out what they really meant was, yes, he does play D&D, he plays games, but he was explicitly hired to run tabletop RPGs as team building exercises.
That's fantastic.
That is what we, that is one of the things that the sister company that basically it's kind of one company. They're just two different names so they can separate out the marketing for them. But like, and I think legally they're technically separate, but he is on the sister company side and they're marketing his services to do team building. So I talked with him a bit at the holiday party. We might have him on for an interview if we can find a compatible time, since he's in California. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That requires a little bit of juggling, but we've got portals.
Yeah, we do. He'll be getting off work just as we start the podcast. So
we can always go later.
We could go later. Maybe you're tired already.
Maybe I just, as long as I get in a nap and like make sure I get like 10 hours of sleep the night before, it'll be just fine.
Cool. You had been talking about bullet journal. You introduced me to bullet journaling and had been talking about a gamer bullet journaling, but you're going a little deeper into that now.
Yeah. So I've used a bullet journal to keep track of my role-playing game notes. I use it for my lunchtime campaign, which is just wrapping up. I've been using it. I can't say it's a full-on bullet journal, but I have my journal that I keep track of my campaign notes for the games that I play in, because I find, especially playing online, I pay much more attention if I'm doodling and like writing down what's actually happening rather than just being distracted by the internet. Right. So I've been doing that for a bit, but here's the thing. I am dangerously close to being 51. I have entirely too many responsibilities, which distract me from my true quest of being able to play more video games. And so it's, going back all the way back in time to when I was first playing the Atari 2600, and the Commodore 64 and Ultima 4 and all of these like great old games, right? Mm-hmm. There were no in-game journals for any of these games. If you wanted to keep track of stuff, you had to keep track of stuff longhand, right? Yep. Or maybe type up your notes later. But like I had spiral bound notebook after spiral bound notebook to just keep track of all of the games that I was playing, because there were like hints, or there were secrets, or there were like, hey, this scene, I encountered this random NPC. I'm never going to find this person again. I better make a note, right?
Yep.
It's funny how things come around again, because now there are all these journals, but I still don't remember where I am. It's not because I'm losing my memory. It's just because, I haven't played Cyberpunk 2077 in 2 weeks, I think, because we're trying to hire somebody at work. We're getting ready for Christmas. Scouts is like got rechartering. Like it's just completely bonkers, right? And so I've been thinking, what I need is a journal to keep track of where I left off, right? Like, okay, here's the current quest you're on, and the game is going to help you with what the current quest is. But the thing that I found the most challenging is the games that require you to collect a bunch of things, right? So Animal Crossing, right? Like you're trying to craft the thing. What the heck? What do I need? Oh, I need 3 glowing vine things and what have you. But if you just keep track of it in your bullet journal, then, you can easily pick it back up again. Yep. I was thinking about this too. My daughter, when she was home from college, got really back into Dragon Age Inquisition. And this is the other thing that got me thinking about it, because I remember playing Dragon Age Inquisition and I kind of burned out on it because it requires so much management, right? And I love Knights of the Old Republic. Like I loved those games that were really crunchy and had all these little pieces, and you need to go out and find all of the different components so you can get the blaster with the ray splitter, with the scope, and like all of the special things, right? And like 5 different variants for your lightsaber. That's fantastic, but it's really hard to keep track of when you're not playing every day, right?
Right.
So that got me on to, maybe what I need is a bullet journal, right? Get me a little bit more focus, keep some of this stuff tracked down. I could play less complicated games. Like I don't have this problem with Portal.
Right.
But when you're playing Dragon Quest or you're playing Cyberpunk 2077, there's a fair amount to keep track of.
Yeah.
So I started doing some research. I'm going to keep track of it. I'm going to start doing the gamer bullet journal from the back of my D&D / Star Wars bullet journal. we'll see. I've been looking for spreads on Pinterest. If people have suggestions, feel free to share them with us as comments or what have you. Dump it onto Dice Camp. I think it's gonna help my sanity, and I always am looking for excuses to draw and write stuff. So
yeah, I've got I like the Lecterm journal format since it's the end of the year and I'm running out of space in the current one. I'm like, okay, let me just buy one official bullet journal and actually try my journals. Like I may start out with the bullet journal idea, but then they become daily to-do lists after a while. And so I figure new journal, I'll go with the full-fledged bullet journal that actually has some instructions in there. I think I have the bullet journal method book. I should probably reread or skim that again. I never read the full thing. There's a lot of philosophy stuff in there rather than in addition to the instructions on how to do it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I'm going to try that, just plain old bullet journaling, but like do it fully, not my version of it. And so I'm interested in seeing how that would map, how you map that to gaming.
Yeah, I think part of it too is like the actual journaling piece, like the dashes. Hey, this is what I did while I was playing this game this day. I think one of the things where I was exploring this topic on Pinterest, because I go to Pinterest to look for this kind of stuff for all my campaign inspiration. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of bullet journaling stuff on Pinterest. And unfortunately, like 3/4 of the stuff you come across are people just using video games to inspire their spreads in their bullet journal. Right. So here is a Mario Brothers themed calendar, right? Or here's a Portal themed habit tracker or something, right? Which is all well and good, and like they've got some great artists, and it looks fun, and I'm sure it's enjoyable. But that's not the problem I'm trying to solve, right? I'm not going for artsy. I'm going for
you're going for functionality.
I'm going for functional. I always go for functional when it comes to my bullet journal. So we'll see. I was toying with putting it into my regular bullet journal, but I go through those pretty quickly, like every 5 to 6 months. And the more stuff I put into that journal, the faster I'm going to go through those journals. Right. And I like being able to look back on at least like the last quarter, maybe the last 5 months, because there's that random thing from a couple of months ago that you need to define. So it's just easier to keep it all in my gamer journal.
Sure. You mentioned like doing tick marks for like each individual thing that you did during a particular game, which reminded me of a couple of things in terms of like XP specifically for Dungeons and Dragons. Like a lot of people that I know are using milestone XP and everybody levels up at the same time. But there's some contention about that because, one of the things that can help engage players is individual XP, but you have to have like good guidelines for the rewards for that.
Yeah.
The gaming group that I was in with Aaron back in the college days, that was role playing heavy, we actually had a sheet that was just XP, and that was one night. And you would write, your name, your character name, and then you'd write everything you did that you thought was worthy of XP. Like, hey, we got in this fight. Hey, we role played with this person. Hey, we solved this thing. Hey, we did this other thing. Hey, we had this idea and built this monstrous, thing over here. Hey, we dropped a giant rock on the Elven Kingdom. That sort of, that did happen, by the way. It was not my fault. Actually, that was Aaron's fault. But she'll tell you the story one day if people ask. We would hand that in, and then the GM would go line by line and give XP for each individual thing, and then a total at the end. And now mostly this was all second edition D&D. So it wasn't like a third edition D&D, I think, is when everybody leveled up at the same XP level. Like 1,000 points was level 2 and 3,000 points was level 3. All the progressions evened out. Whereas second edition was like, a fighter needs 5,000 XP to go to level 2, but a mage needs 8,000 XP to go to level 2. No real reasoning behind that, except for that, at higher levels, like it takes more brain power and work to be a mage than it does to swing a sword, theoretically. And also, fireballs kill a lot more things than a single sword swing.
Yes,
but then again,
yes.
second edition fighter could swing a sword a heck of a lot of times.
It's true.
We were already leveling up at different times. So this gave us an incentive to be, well, one, it gave us an incentive to role play, because role playing was by far the most XP that GMs gave out, because that's what we all wanted to do and wanted out of the game. So good role playing and role playing in character was heavily rewarded. The thing that wasn't really rewarded was I think we threw out the 1 XP per gold piece gathered, because that was first and second edition. That was a thing. Was, hey, I got 50 gold pieces. That means I got 50 experience points.
Right.
So that went away. But yeah, so your comment of doing the bullet journaling with each individual tick, like if I still had those sheets, I could pull those sheets up and remember exactly what happened that night.
Right.
And I'm going to start adopting that when I start doing like a longer term game. I think I will start at least a journal with all those little bullet points. If I'm a player, if I'm a GM, it's a little harder taking notes sometimes.
Yes, but yes, it's much harder. It's much harder to do it as a GM.
Yeah, you have a little less time since you're juggling all those players.
Yes.
We seem to be really in the retro caves because
yes,
of your next topic. Well, this is kind of a blast from the past that has had a sequel to it. So why don't you tell us about The Return of Willow?
Willow is back. So the movie came out in Go Internet.
Oh, please don't tell me.
1987? 88.
Ouch. Okay.
1988 Willow came out. I believe I saw it in theaters.
I know I saw it in theaters. And I think I saw it multiple times in theaters.
I didn't go that far. And it was fun. It has some notable characters. It's kind of a little bit generic fantasy. There's a evil queen who's trying to kill the newborn princess, and the title character Willow has to save her and get her to safety. And Val Kilmer shows up at some point and is a master swordsman.
It kind of broke a bit of the mold, though, with respect to sword and sorcery, because the main character was Willow, who is a little person, a Nelwyn.
Yes.
Who is not, and because the sword and sorcery up to that point was like Conan and Deathstalker and all these,
this is very true,
muscular buff people with swords. And he was like, not, he wanted to be a mage, but he had some doubts about himself. And basically the wizard of the village says, okay, you're going to be chosen. Like he fakes the choosing so that Willow can go, because he knows that Willow has potential, but he's not really a sorcerer, but he's got a little bit of sorcery. And so it definitely not your Conan the Barbarian setup.
No, it plays a little bit inside of the genre and challenges a few of your assumptions. But I don't know. At the time, I wasn't in love with it. I think maybe I wasn't playing D&D when I was in high school, so okay. I think I was in
That's probably why I liked it a lot more.
Sci-fi comic book sort of mode.
Sure.
I love the two-headed dragon wyvern thing that breathed fire in the keep.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And had some great little set pieces. It did. I guess I just watched it again.
I always viewed them as like Lenny and Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley, but it wasn't. I don't think it was those actors. When I was a kid, I could have sworn one of them definitely was Lenny. I think it was Lenny. Might have been Squiggy. It's been so long.
Yes,
but like the little pixies, the little brownies that are there, I loved their comedy counterpoint to everything. The fact that they stole the baby. Etc. It's like, I stole the baby. I don't think they knew what they were going to do with the baby, but the baby was there. They're going to steal it. They're like, smaller Kender.
Yes.
I really liked it. I know it didn't pick up with you, but they've made a series now. Based on it, but it's not like picking up exactly where it left off. It's picking up 18 years after it left off, or is it like to the day, like real life movie life?
I think
it's like 18 because
I think it's like 18 years
because that's I think how old Alora is.
Yeah, the main character Alora was a baby in the first movie, and so now in the series she's like approximately 18, right?
Yeah.
So time has passed.
Mm-hmm.
Time has passed so that all of our you can feel a kinship with everybody who's gotten older. There is we were also introduced to the new generation. The heroes from the first movie have had kids, and there's certain intrigues afoot, and it's I'm just enjoying it. I mean, I enjoyed Willow to a certain extent. Like, it's one of those movies that I would fire up. But I think even when I was in college, like, all my friends would we would fire up Conan, right? Like, and we would even fire up Conan the Destroyer before we would like break out Willow. But I definitely have a certain amount of nostalgia for it at this point. And the series, I found it to be like, it's a little goofy. It's like sometimes a little self-serious, but a lot snarky at the right moments, and just generally entertaining. It reminds me of like my favorite D&D campaigns.
Right. Yep. No,
right? It's got that mix.
Yeah, because it's got the seriousness, but it's got the comedy of like people cracking each other up at the table, with the, the line, I stole the baby. And, and of course, Mad Mardigan is, a constant source of snark.
Yes.
And when the pixies put the love potion on him and he falls in love with Sorsha, it's like, I don't love her. I hate her. She kicked me in the face. And then he gets the look on his face of, do I really hate her? Maybe I love her. And back then to, I guess, 15-year-old me, that was a very appealing movie. Especially since I'd been playing, I don't think I've ever said this. I started D&D. It's hard for me to remember exactly now if it was like 3rd or 4th grade. I went to a summer camp, and my first character, we talked about our first characters in a past episode of Conan the Halfling. I believe he's a thief, or maybe it was a fighter. Like, that really got me into D&D then. And so I was prime candidate for Willow fandom when it came out. Plus, it was George Lucas who made Star Wars, so I didn't know better at that point.
Yeah, and I think I was looking for more Star Wars, and I did. You don't quite get Star Wars.
Oh no,
but.
No, it was good for me. It was good, but and luckily it didn't suffer too much on the dialogue department, like some people complain about. But I think what really slight tangent. I think what really happened is we needed the original editor on Star Wars, which happened to end up being George Lucas's wife and then ex-wife. We needed her back for episodes 1, 2, and 3. And I think it would have gone much better, or at least someone with her sensibilities and the ability to say no to George Lucas. I think is what really held things back, is the ability to say no, even though George probably would have been fine with being told no if it made the movie better.
Yeah. Yeah. So check out Willow. It's fun. I think I've watched the first 3 episodes. I'm looking forward to watching some more of it this weekend. It's coming out. It's on Disney Plus. I think it's coming out weekly. I think the first 2 or 3 episodes were available when it launched.
So like the first,
although I just started watching it.
The first 2 are like the pilot episodes, and each one is like an hour long. Is episode 3 an hour long as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those are
pretty long episodes. Which is cool.
I have to say, the most recent episode, I'll have to see if I can find a link to it for the show notes. There is at the end of every episode, they end with some sort of pop song, right? Because as someone pointed out online, like, the Willow theme does not carry the same sort of nostalgia
or
that
gravitas.
The Star Wars theme.
Yes,
it's just not that, right? And so for the end credits, they've been coming up with these different different pop songs, like covers of different pop songs, or different. Just I don't think they're all pop because this was definitely not pop. But the most recent one was "Enter Sandman" by Metallica.
Oh, really? Wow!
And it is a fantastic cover. It was cool. There's a woman who's singing it. I have never heard her before. And I had "Enter Sandman" stuck in my head for 2 days after watching this episode.
All right. Tangent time. Aaron had, is it Hidden Citizens? Yes. Aaron found a band called Hidden Citizens, and they make I believe it's in their own words, epic covers of old songs. So they have an epic version of Paint It Black. They have an epic version of For Elise. They have an epic version of O Fortuna. They have all sorts of stuff. They've been around for several years. So it would not surprise me if that cover was by Hidden Citizens, because they're really quite good.
Enter Sandman. It was actually, I think it was released as part of a tribute album for Metallica's Black Album, like as like an anniversary version of the Black Album or something like that. I looked it up and then I didn't actually put it into the show notes because I wasn't thinking that I was just to talk about it, but it was fantastic and
cool.
You know, I mean, that album came out when I was like a sophomore in college, and I listened to it endlessly.
Oh yeah. That was a CD that was played on repeat a lot in the dorm that I was in, the dorm room I was in. That was a pretty epic one. Which, funnily enough, I didn't own it. I think I taped it from my friend Chuck's CD. My roommates. It was pretty. It was an epic album. So yeah. So main topic. Do we have one? Did we come up with one? Oh, we did. Kind of.
Kind of.
We were gonna go. Speaking of your GM bullet journal, and the fact that I am now thinking of things like running a lunchtime game at work, but also early next year, I'm hoping that my in-person games restarts again. We were going to look at your GM toolkit that you had recently taken to Mepicon.
Indeed.
How did it work?
So
did it work out well?
Yeah, I think it worked out. It worked out pretty well. So I have two. One is for Savage Worlds, and one is for like regular size Dungeons and Dragons. And it's important because the boxes hold the different size rule books, right? So the bigger one can easily hold 5th edition D&D books, or Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is what I actually played at Mepicon. Whereas the smaller one easily fits all the Savage World books. So both of them are Plano. Oh, let's see if we can pick one up. Oh, there we go. Look at that.
Oh my gosh, that thing's huge.
Yes, this is like, it's a bit unwieldy. I wouldn't want to take it to Gen Con.
Yep.
It works out pretty well. So the beautiful thing about it is that it has, I'm going to actually use the smaller one, which it's exactly the same as the bigger one. It's just smaller.
Tighter. Yep.
Tighter. So it's got a nice compartment that you can open in the top. So for this one, this is the Savage Worlds edition. Which I need some Savage World stickers.
Yeah,
you've got space in the top to fit just a whole bunch of cards. So I backed the Savage Worlds Kickstarter, and in here I've got my templates, I've got my status cards, I've got my adventure deck, I've got my action deck, which is basically the playing card. So it's all just really easy to get out of here. And when someday I will run Savage Worlds in the real world, and it's going to be fantastic.
Cool.
In addition, the center compartment. Here, let's see if I got my Savage Worlds book handy. Yes, I do. Do this without hurting myself. So, Savage Worlds rulebook easily slides into here. So I can just take whatever books I'm going to be running for that particular con and just shove them in here.
Now,
so that fits.
Did that come with like? I see that there's 2 plastic divider things that I'm sure you're going to talk about in a second. Did it come with 3 and you just leave the top one out so you can put a book in? Gotcha. I'll
just leave the top one out and the great thing about Savage Worlds is that, the books usually the source books are pretty small.
Right.
So I am holding up the Superpowers Companion. It's pretty thin compared to the core rule book. They're digest size. So they're just, if you're going to run Savage Worlds at a con, and I love running Savage Worlds at a con, it just fits for it well.
Yep. Some Fate or Blades in the Dark sized books would probably also fit there.
Yes, easily. This is the you're going to a con and you're running the small games.
Gotcha.
It did come with these inserts, so these nice sealed trays. The one I'm holding up right now currently I have different tokens for Savage Worlds. So I've got my map markers. I've got my bennies, which are you can use poker chips. I've often used these little crystals that are in here. I have status counters for that are blue or red to indicate whether someone's been stunned or if they're how many wounds they have. And then I have green tokens just for whatever the heck I want to use green tokens for. The Savage Worlds Kickstarter actually came with bennies as well. So they're actually like poker chip style bennies. And
nice.
Savage World specific dice and all the status tokens. So I haven't actually had a chance to use any of these things yet. But
thanks, COVID.
I'm looking forward to it. Yes, thanks, COVID. I got it. And then, reality shut down for a little bit.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just wondering, what is we're definitely not sponsored. But what is the brand of that? If anybody wanted to pick one up.
They are Plano.
Okay.
So Plano, known for tackle boxes. These are all technically tackle.
They're supposed to be. It's supposed to be a tackle box.
They're supposed to be a tackle box.
Gotcha.
They actually have a lot of different things that are out there. I think they also make stuff. They end up being used for crafting and those sorts of things as well. I have to imagine I got into these because friends of mine were doing the X-Wing game, the Star Wars X-Wing game, and storing all of their stuff in it because it was like the perfect form factor. And actually HeroClix, fitting the HeroClix figures into the boxes was absolutely perfect. And so I could just imagine the folks at Plano being like, why the hell are we selling so many of these particular cases, right? Like, if they don't have geeks at the company and they're just not realizing, you've got hundreds, thousands of geeks buying a particular tackle box, and it's why are fishermen so interested in this? Are we skewing the whole freaking tackle box market,
probably,
right?
Probably. But hopefully, Plano, or other companies pick up on it. And then market it to gamers, in some cases.
So I think that's the case. I think they have been picking up on it because this has been going on for a decade.
Gotcha. When I was in high school, my English teacher's husband ran a game that they actually they knew I was a gamer, and I kind of came in as a provisionary member for a little while. I think my parents probably got tired of shuttling me back and forth for that game. So it didn't last for a ton of time. But one of the players there had a case of their own. This is more player, but it could definitely be used for GM. Was an auditor's case is what it was called.
Okay.
It was basically a square box or a rectangular sort of boxy shape with a handle. Samsonite made them. And then when you let go of the handle, you could flip open one side and then flip open the other side. It's they kind of laid on top, the covers laid on top of each other. So you'd open one and then you'd open the other, but it was a hard sided case. It was leather. So it was rigid case, not hard-sided, but rigid case. And it perfectly fit the second edition D&D books. And so you could put in a D&D, all the D&D books that you would need, all your character sheets, everything like that. And I think there was just enough room between the books and the lid or the flaps for the lid to put your dice bag. And so he'd come in with that all the time. And that's pretty cool. But also at that time I was not driving. So my go-to was always putting everything in my backpack and getting on my bike. So an auditor's case, as cool as it was not practical for me.
Yes.
So
yes.
I don't suppose that has backpack straps, which is why
it does not.
Which is why you said you weren't going to be carrying it to Gen Con. But
yes, exactly. So the nice thing about the big one, and so I got back into this because for many years we played in my game room, which is where I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
And being in my game room, I knew where everything was. When we started going to other people's houses again, I typically just stored everything in milk crates, but it got really unwieldy.
Right.
And occasionally the books would crush your fingers as you were trying to like carry the milk crates around. So
yep, I've done that myself. Done that myself.
I had milk crates and like a lunchbox. I have this old Batman lunchbox that I inherited from a friend. It worked, but this is definitely for that use case of just going to a friend's house. The big one is and playing Dungeons and Dragons at a friend's house. That the big one is much better for that. It also has a lot of space for things like index cards, which are an essential DM tool.
Definitely.
I've got. Once you get into the other one, the big one's just got a lot of storage, and so that's the other thing that makes it really helpful for this sort of thing. So I have one tray. You can hear the rattling. This is entirely filled with Hero Quest figures.
Oh, okay.
Right? So these are just generic plastic fantasy figures that I've used for almost all of my games for like the last 20 years. I don't even remember. I inherited this. I think I either inherited this from a friend or I got it in an auction at Mepicon. I can't even remember, but I can't tell you how essential these have been to my campaign. Like I have actual minis as well, but this is like you're going to a friend's house. You don't have time to get the minis together. Okay, cool. It's just ready to go.
Yep.
And then the other one, this is actually heavier. Like in the smaller box, it's got a variety of tokens. It's got a variety of different kinds of dice. So in this one, because it's bigger, I've got all of the poker chips. I've got my crystals for representing inspiration. I've got a whole bunch of D6s because everybody always needs D6s.
Yes.
I have my funky Dungeon Crawl Classics dice. I have my random dungeon generation dice. And some other tokens. I have my fate dice.
Nice.
So
nice.
It's all good. And of course, random pens and stuff. And the nice thing about this is, and now that I'm organized, like sometimes we'll go up to my in-laws' place up in the Poconos, and I'll just grab this because it's got all of my dice. Like if I'm going to be working on my campaign over the weekend, I don't need to take the whole box.
Right.
I can just take the tray. And I have a number of like extra trays because I'm like, as you noted, I took some of them out to be able to fit stuff in, fit books in, and so. It's an option for storing the other stuff in your game room, right? Like you don't necessarily, it's not that you necessarily have to take the case somewhere. Having the case just helps you be organized.
Yeah. Yeah.
So ultimately to answer your question,
go ahead.
It went pretty good. It was a little like, thankfully it wasn't a big con. And so I wasn't like walking into people. I was playing in games. I wasn't running games aside from, Gaslands.
Yeah.
And at this con, I had all my Gasland stuff in here too. Well, actually, I had all my friend Nate's Gasland stuff in here, but it all fit very nicely.
Right.
I think for my books, I actually kept most of the books in my backpack. I got a lightweight backpack that we talked about a couple years ago.
Yep.
At this point,
a couple seasons. We'll say a season or two ago.
A season or two ago, I got this like really nice lightweight Osprey pack, and the nice thing about it, I wasn't sure how that was going to function at a con. It worked well because it forced me to not take too many books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting when you're GMing, especially at a convention. There's a certain amount of content of books or whatever that you have to take. And you might not want to take like a tablet, or something might not be available on a tablet, or you might be a little worried that the tablet would walk off. So like having your books there is like, and be able to maybe have more than one book open is good in your module or whatever. But backpacks, like you can stuff your backpack and it's very heavy, or you have your GM kit. There's also like the rolly suitcase style, or the things that basically are like a milk crate, but it has a handle and wheels on it. I used one of those one con, and it basically disintegrated because it was cheap. But it's still kind of situational. If I'm going to a con, I wouldn't want to take the tackle box, but I want something like a backpack that has compartments that isn't the board gamer backpack, which can hold like Gloomhaven in it and still have room. Or like, any convention that you would go to, it's like, it's a case of how much do you actually want to be carting around all the time, and how can you do that comfortably and yet still have access to all the stuff easily.
I think if I, hoping to go to Mepicon again in the spring, and hopefully running Gaslands again in the spring, and hopefully printing a bunch of 3D stuff for Gaslands in the spring. But I think I would take the smaller one. I think I would just retask the Savage Worlds box for whatever games I was going to be playing, because it's less unwieldy. It's just, I think it would just be, and I would streamline, right? So I would just take the essential books that I need. To your point, I often like taking the physical, like, core rule book, because I can reference that. And if I have my tablet, I can either pass my book over to that person while I'm looking at the rule on a tablet, or what have you. Right. Or I have like my quick reference things on my tablet, but the book is just easier to flip through because I already bookmarked it to the monsters I need, or the spells that I need, or what have you. The backpack wise, I think it's a 20-liter pack. And everyone's like, oh, it's a 20-liter pack. Well, now I know, because when I bought it, I didn't know what a 20-liter pack was. Right. Thanks to Philmon, I know what a 20-liter pack is, and I know what an 85-liter pack is. I think if I wasn't going to bring the case and I was just going to go backpack, because, like, say for Gen Con, I'm going to be looking for like a 45-liter pack, like a reasonable pack with some nice internal compartments, and then use the trays.
I've been really happy with this pack. I'm trying to zip it up, so sorry. It's from Eagle Creek. It's this pack here, and like when it's empty, it squashes down. But
nice.
when it's full, like it can contain a lot. I believe this is a 30-liter is the sizing of it. It's got a front compartment that zips down the side that has some drain holes in it. So if you have like a swimsuit, you can throw it in here, and all the stuff in here is water resistant, so it's not going to leak to the rest of your pack. It's got a nice, easy, handy pouch here, water bottle thing on the side, which is why I have a carabiner, is because it doesn't matter how deep or secure the water bottle thing is. If I don't secure it with like a carabiner, like my water bottle has a loop that I secure with the carabiner here.
Right.
If I don't do that, it's going to fly out. So that's not the backpack's fault. But yeah, it's got a lot of little mesh areas inside. The front area is like, if I puff it up and bring it over here, I mean, it's pretty thick. That's
almost your whole arm in there, right?
Oh, I can fit almost up to my shoulder in it, is how deep it is. And that's the front compartment. The back compartment is padded for a laptop, and it's got a couple sections in it. I found out that there's the laptop section, and there's this tiny little pocket in front of it. Turns out my iPad fits perfectly in it. So they designed it well for that too. And then they've got a bigger area in front of the laptop area. It's got these nice little pass-throughs here, so I can put my giant battery in this area and feed the USB cord up. And then it's got a little clip here where the USB cord can hold onto it, so it's not flapping around all over the place. And then finally, it's got kind of like a more secure, but mostly for flat things, this goes right against your back.
Okay.
And it's got like a loop if you want to put your car keys or whatever here, or whatever. Essential. But like if you have like passports or something and you want to stick it where people can't open the main part of the bag. I haven't really used it, but it also has a pass through to the main part up to the top part. So if you have a flat battery, which I do not, if you have a more flat battery, you could feed the power cord all the way up through, or an ancient thing called an iPod could probably fit back in here. And you could feed
I got one of those
corded headphones through. To everyone out there, there's a lot of great ways to make player and GM kits for your game. I really like the idea of being able to pick up a case and just go. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I can't do that with my backpack because that's more my work stuff. I always end up emptying it, put gaming stuff in it, emptying it, put work stuff in it. So I don't have a dedicated thing there, but I think it might be kind of nice to do if especially if I'm gaming outside of my house on a regular basis. So if that happens, I'm going to be take some pointers from Ken's setup there. But I want to hear from everybody else out there what your gaming setup is. Like, what is your GM or player toolkit that you bring everywhere? Or if you want to get into the rabbit hole of the everyday carry, what is your gamer everyday carry? Your tabletop gamer everyday carry. Or if you're into board games, that's even more stuff to lug around. If you're carrying around more than one game, how do you get those things around without a truck? I definitely want to hear those things from you guys. But other than that, thank you for listening. If you are watching on Twitch or watching on YouTube, please give us a follow, or as YouTube says, like and subscribe. If you have feedback, we definitely love feedback. So you can send it to us at podcast@lairofsecrets.com, via Twitter at Lair of Secrets for as long as Twitter still lasts. But since it's been having some trouble, we're also now on Mastodon at dicecamp.com. We are at Lair of Secrets at dicecamp.com. And we stream this live on Twitch. If you want to get your fix of things early and unedited, we are Lair of Secrets, one word over there. You can also visit, and this is like the mothership, the main cave, the sections of all the vaults, the front door, if you will, is lairofsecrets.com. And leave us some feedback, topics, ideas, or your own thoughts on what we've talked about. We have comments open over there too. Thank you. And again, give us all your GM and player toolkits that you carry around. Thanks, everybody.